and welcome to Man's Model Moments Midweek Model Meet. And today we are doing unboxings, of course, for March. So welcome everybody. Hopefully this week the chat works properly, because those of you who joined last week where we had a bit of a chat with Jamie Hago from Scale Modelling Cafe, the chat did not work properly. It was intermittent, it was different for different people, messages weren't showing up. I couldn't post messages to my own channel. So YouTube had a bit of a brain fart and yeah, made it a little bit weird for the chat. We could still chat on Discord, which is kind of how we got around some of it, but it wasn't ideal. So hopefully that doesn't happen tonight, and it certainly seems so far that's the case. So anyway, unboxings. Welcome everybody. I see lots of familiar faces. Welcome to everybody. I'm not going to go through and identify everybody. You know who you are. You know who I am. But thank you for joining tonight. I'm not going to go through everybody because generally it takes us quite a lot to get through the unboxings here tonight. I want to try and get through as many as possible for you guys. So you've all seen, I hope, the poll that's up. Closed now, so unfortunately you can't vote. Well, I mean you can, but it just won't get counted, so it's a bit of a pointless exercise. Let me show you the results from that. So this is what we have so far. So the ICM Gangster car is number 1. Then we've got the Academy Skyrocket, the Westland Wyvern, okay, the AK Troop Carrier, and the William Lay Orbital Rocket. Those are the top 5, and then Super Spiteful, Pirate Ship, and others as we go down. So let us have a little look at what we have. So Gangster car is first, so I will have to grab a couple of this because I don't have everything there that I need, but let's see how we get on. So this is a release that came out last year from ICM. So this is 1/24th scale, and I think it's quite neat. Obviously it's the Ford Model A, so you will have seen, I hope, from ICM that they just announced the release for March of a brand new, 100% new tooled Ford Model T car. So one of the things that ICM do, which is a little bit different, they do tend to do some slightly different subjects, are old cars, like cars of the 1910s, 20s, 30s. And this is obviously one of them, and the new Ford is as well. So I should be getting that in about a month. I received a package from ICM today with the February releases. So that includes the torpedo bomber version of the Hampton. So the Hampton actually Mark II. So the Hampton had some improvements made to its defensive armament after practice showed that it was quite vulnerable, despite being quite fast for the kind of stuff it was being asked to do. I always get it wrong, Vickers K, isn't it? Not Lewis guns. They look like Lewis guns, but they're Vickers Ks. In the back and the underneath, basically the rear guns wasn't enough, so they doubled those. So that has slightly different transparency pieces. It has a torpedo, slightly different bomb bay, and different transparencies in the front as well, because they had the bracings on the 2 side windows. So a little bit different. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, the Black Hawk complete with crew. What else did they have there? The HS123, that was a new tool last year with ground crew, the 1/32nd scale. And also the 1/35th scale American US truck with the kitchen in. I think it's actually called something like Festive Dinner, so it's like a Christmas dinner cooking kind of scene. So really nice little diorama kind of set. So more in the set kind of pieces. But anyway, talking about tonight, we're going to look at the Ford A Gangster car to start with. And I'm going to take you over to the camera. There we go. So first thing I need to do is to turn off this light. although that hasn't made much difference there. Move my glasses across there, and let's focus just to make sure we get everything nice and crisp. So a little bit of reflection, because obviously we'd have this nice glossy outer so it's a gangster car, typical of the period, sort of in the 1920s-ish. Bullet riddled, but without any, direct reference to certain gangsters, but I think we can all guess. So typical ICM outer, and then the standard box with plastic, big bag of plastic, the ubiquitous ICM paint guide, and then the instructions themselves. So let's just put the plastic out of the way for 1 second there. Clear my bench a little bit. So instructions very much as in all of ICM's kind of layout. It's got the box art, a little bit of talk here. Do they actually mention anybody here? Just talk about the Great Depression, 1929 stock market crash. I watched a video about that actually, and quite interesting the conditions that led up to that. But no. Criminal success was further enhanced by Thompson's submachine guns, which boasted rapid-fire capability and earned the nickname Tommy Gun. Notably, these weapons cost around $200, about half the price of a Ford A motormobile. So these two guns were the same price as that car. That's quite astonishing, really, isn't it? Anyway, so we have the decal sheet there. Oh, you actually get decals for bullet holes. I'm not sure I'd be using decals for bullet holes, but interesting that you get those as an option. Frame layouts. So the only part you're not using here is this one. And then you're onto the build. So the Ford A, ICM have boxed in various different forms. This you can see you've got the complete engine. The chassis builds up very much like all of ICM's vehicles. So you're essentially building the vehicle kind of as it was. You build the chassis, you put the engine in, and you've got the gearbox and all of those pieces. And then on top of that, you put the main bodywork of the car, and then build all of that up. So this is great if you want to do super detailing as well, because you have that option. If you want to add wiring and pipelines and all the stuff to the engine, this is nice, but you have the option to put all of that extra in should you want. The only bugbear I have with these ICM kits when they do this is that they don't give you any out of the box option for opening this up and showing that, which I think would be kind of logical, right? Not that that's a huge thing if you're going to scratch build, if you're going to show these open, it's not a huge thing. ICM kits are meant for intermediate level and up modelers, so but it would be nice to see that, and I think that's one small point that I would say they could do better in these kits. It's a small one, but otherwise you've got this engine, this beautiful engine you've been supplied, and then you're unable to see it. So really, do you need to build that if you're not going to see it? It's kind of one of those age-old questions, isn't it? If you can't see it, should you build it? A lot of modelers would say, no, I'm not going to bother because you can't see it. And then others would say, no, I know it's there, so I'm going to put it in. There's no right answer, of course. It's very much up to you. But, yeah, I would like the option to be able to display it out of the box without having to alter parts or anything. I'd like to have this a folded option for this. But that's my only grumble with these kits. Other than that, obviously you've got the internal framework for the soft top, obviously moulded in plastic, which actually looks really nice. That folding, well, you know, all the folding mechanisms show that. So that looks pretty good. You do get the getaway bag and Thompson machine guns too, and then of course masks for nicely inside and outside, which is good. I like that. Of course, very simple for this this vehicle. Oh, you also get the 911s too. Oh, and a little cutout newspaper. And you can read that. Barrow girl lured to death. I bet you could read. In fact, where's the super macro lens? Let's see if we can read the newspaper. Let's see. Oh, you can't. It's just the headlines and the top bit you can, but the other bits you can't. Which, you know, the whole thing is like an inch by 2/3 of an inch, so I wouldn't have expected you should be able to, but I think it's nice that you can read the actual title and headline there. But that's a neat little addition, you know. Okay, enough of that. Let's actually see some plastic. So we're going to get some crinkly noises, I'm afraid. And again, I've said this multiple times. Revell do it well. ICM do it well. Other companies get this right. Airfix don't. Bagging. This is a big bag, but it's been folded over and stuck so the components... There's no movement in that bag, right? Despite the fact everything is in one bag, I can almost guarantee there will be no breakages here. So we've got vinyl tyres. I'm not a huge fan of vinyl tyres until it gets to this stage. I think 1/24th, maybe some 1/32nd. That's kind of the minimum scale you should be getting vinyl tyres. Otherwise, I think plastic is preferable. So you get 4 of those transparencies. You get 5 tyres because obviously you've got the spare. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh my goodness. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 frames. So you actually get 2 of these, which I'm going to start off with some of the smaller frames first, actually, because I really like this. This is the bag, sort of doctor's bag style, or doctor style bag. It was quite popular at the beginning of the 20th century. The Thompson submachine gun, which is really nice, with the very famous drum magazine, but also you get the standard clip magazine as well, and then a 911. So again, let's show you in. There we go. Why is that not... Apologies, I accidentally pressed the freeze button there, which freezes the... Well, actually, the freeze button could be very useful here. Let's turn that the other way around. So there we go. That's the 911. I mean, that is pretty well moulded, isn't it? A 1/24 scale 911. That looks pretty good. That's the Thompson drum magazine. Both sides of that. You can get an idea of how big these are from the sprue and the tooling, the part number. The Thompson itself, you've got the cooling fins on the barrel, muzzle brake. You've got the safety on the side there. Nicely moulded stock. That's the bottom of the doctor's bag. Doctor's bag itself, which is difficult to get into the depth of field of this. Obviously the macro has a very low depth of field, but you've got a little lock on there, look. Sorry, it's hard for me to get this in a position where, let me see. Oh, it's just really awkward. There we go. Managed to freeze it in the right place. You've got a little lock on the travel case. That's all pretty nice. I really like that. That's some nice little touches there. But, I mean, that's that 911. You know, it is about half the width of my fingernail. Let's just make sure we're focused here. So really nice. Two of those little frames, so you get plenty of weaponry. Looks like you get a different dashboard for this one than perhaps normally comes. I think that was the only piece that was marked on the frames as not for use in the main frames, in these ones. And then this itself all looks to be standard ICM fare. So we've got nice, grab my scalpel here, got nice delicate engraving. Sorry, that is not focused very well. Let me just see if I can get that a bit sharper again. Yeah, so nice delicate engraving. My scalpel blade fits nicely along that. Nice little attachment points for these pieces. Nice smooth plastic as always. That all looks pretty good. Nice seat detail here. What else do we have? That's the big soft top cover. All the braces. Again, these braces, you know, I like the way that ICM protect all of these delicate parts. You know, even if you break one of these, you know, if it gets broken somehow, you can glue it on this type of frame and it will sort of heal, if you like, in that position, rather than one if you've just got it stuck. I don't know, I've had like things like this, like aerials and things on some kits which get broken where you've got two attachment points, and then trying to align it is really hard when it's, you know, on the frame and it's only got two attachment points. There's a little bit of flash. Very small amount of flash there. Very thin. Comes off quite easily. It's the only point I can see any there. We got two of these for the wheels, so let me just put one of those aside. I'll look at these smaller ones in a second. That's the main side pieces of the car. You've got these really complex curves of these old 1920s cars. Very nicely reproduced here. Tread plates. And then of course the chassis frames. itself, and then you've got the engine pieces, clutch, all there. And then we're getting into exhaust. These look like pieces for the wheels, transmission, and then into radiator. All of these pieces. Some nice suspension detail. Again, if you wanted to, you could cut that out and put mesh in there instead. That's always, I think, an improvement you can make on radiators and these things. Although obviously, I think it is just the mesh, isn't it? Not sure how that goes in, but I'm not too familiar with the Ford A as a vehicle, so. But all of this looks nice and clean as usual. And you do have the louvering on here on the inside as well as the outside. So if you did want to open one of these up, you do have, you know, it's not just a flat blank piece of plastic. And then that is the console that you're not using on the inside, and instead replacing it with this dedicated one, which differs in only a small amount. But they've given you that. And then we get into the, as I traditionally call them, the fiddly bit sprues, or frames. So you've got the pulley belts. What else? See if I can identify some of these components. Those are your accelerator, brake pedals. What else have we got? Steering wheel, of course. Textured steering wheel. I've described before about how to remove these from these protective pieces. Basically, take the whole thing off, and then you're cutting the sprue off in sections rather than trying to remove this from the sprue. And then you've got all kinds of little fiddly bits, handles, and various God knows what. Again, not too familiar with the anatomy of the Ford Model A. That is the gear shift, I suppose you'd call it, because it's American rather than gear lever. That all looks pretty standard sort of ICM production. And then the wheels, which I think are fantastic. Look at these, they're really crisply moulded. You've got very, nice fine strut spokes, I suppose they're called, on each of those. Some really nice sort of texture in there as well. So those all look pretty good. And then obviously part of the driving pieces, the brakes, I guess. And some more tiny little fiddly bits. And obviously you get two of those. So you will end up with a spare wheel, because obviously you've got 6 wheels. You only need 4 for the car and 1 obviously for the spare. So you can afford to lose one. Not sure why you would, but it's good that you've got the extra piece. So that all looks pretty good. Let's take a quick look at the transparency. Again, it's a bigger bag, but it's been sensibly packed so the things don't move. There we go. So, actually, I guess I do have a second gripe with these kits, is this windscreen wiper thing. This here is, I would much prefer to see that separate, because that doesn't really cut it for me. But traditional transparency, no optical distortion really through there. You've got nice internal, I don't know what you'd really call that, where it's moulded separately, that grid pattern you get on. In fact, let me let me show you on the big ultra macro. There we go. Very, very nice, that. I mean, that could be, rather than a zoomed in part of a 1/24th, you'd be forgiven for thinking that was a photograph of, you know, a 1-to-1. In fact, when I used to do cars, I've seen glass versions of these, you know, fog lights and headlights, which are worse, cast worse than that in the actual piece. But all of that looks rather nice. So I'm going to put those back in that bag, stop them getting damaged at all. Of course, because they are resealable, our little package all done. So let me quickly go back to chat. Make sure I put that back on so that I'm not. If I don't have constant lighting, the chroma key, you see there where it went all blue, it gets confused. It's quite a narrow margin for some reason. Right, let me have a little look at the chat, because obviously I was focused on plastic. And yeah, so one here, Peter Oxley reviewed this kit last year. Looks nice. So I prefer to, rather than relentlessly unboxing every single thing, I prefer to give you the option of what you want to see and try and make it varied so that you see what you're interested in. So it's just a little bit different. You know, Gary does a lot of... so Gary, Peter Oxley and I all get samples from, and possibly others, I'm not sure, get samples from ICM. We'll do things a little bit differently to show you different things. You know, I think it's good and healthy that you have people doing different stuff. Right. So as always, as demonstrated, I guess, by Simon's Modelling Shed. If you want to make a comment, if you put CCC in capital letters, or comment in capital letters, or QQQ, or question in capital letters in the chat, prefacing your comment or question, just draws my attention to it so that I can pick it out of the chat. So thank you, Simon, for demonstrating that. So let me just... Yeah, so as Simon says, just don't glue the bonnet. That is an option. So you can actually take it off, but it would be nice to have a kind of, you know, a folded option. So you could have, like, ICM do some 1/24 scale mechanics in that period. In fact, I think they do a set of female mechanics from the period, because of course in the 20s you had a lot of, obviously 1918 you had a lot of Americans go over to Europe. So much like in World War II, women got into certain occupations that weren't traditional. So ICM have a set of 1/24 scale female mechanics from the 1920s. So it would be nice to have those posed, you know, with an open engine. But I mean, it's perfectly possible to do. It would be nice to have that as an option out of the box, as it were. So yes, Boddy and Clyde, of course, have come up because they are obviously what is being alluded to from this, although there were many other gangsters at the time, obviously. Clyde's preferred weapon was the BIR. Wow. That was a hell of a weapon as well. I think, as well, that was what the federal marshals used when they finally cornered them, right? I think they had BARs. Okay. Lox9 says they need to do a British gangster car. That would be interesting. Martin Willis says type MMM if you would like homemade dark chocolate muffin, or perhaps. Or maybe that should be 6 M's for Man's Model Moments Midweek Model Muffin, right? Okay, so overall, I think that's a really nice, and it's a different kind of subject. So I think this is, and again, a lot of ICM kits offer you, a lot of people would say, well, it's not my thing, and it's like, which is, 100% fine. But if you're feeling a bit jaded with armour, or there isn't a current vehicle that takes your fancy, or you want to do something just a little bit different, I think this kind of fits that bill of, it's familiar but it's a little bit different. It's a decent size, because obviously 20s cars slightly different structure to modern ones. Overall, I mean, not that they were necessarily smaller, but some of the earlier ones were obviously quite a lot smaller than modern vehicles, depending where you are in the world, of course. Not modern Japanese vehicles in sort of Kyoto and stuff, where they have to have them small. But I think that's quite a nice sort of diversion from perhaps a traditional subject, shall we say. Apologies for the crinkly bag noises, slightly unavoidable in an unboxing session. Just making sure I got the instructions, make sure I put the decals back, and then back on with top. That is the Ford A gangster car. Nice. Although there's no way I'd ever do it with lime green wheels. They had some odd schemes in the 20s, honestly. But I like the extra little touches. I think having those Brownings and the 911s, the loot bags, just gives it that little bit of different flavour. I don't think I would use the decals for the bullet holes. If I was going to put bullet holes in it, I'd drill bullet holes in it, right? But it's just quite a nice, neat little touch, I think, to make it a little bit different. But so yeah, quite like that. It was nice. So what do we have next? Next is the Academy 148 Skyrocket. Now this is a weird thing. They only ever made one. So here is the Skyrocket. See what I mean about the chroma filter and everything here. So it was I think informally dubbed the Skyrocket because its performance, including its climb performance, was astonishing for its age. So this was proposed to be a fighter, obviously, and essentially the development of it, I think what held it back, as what holds back a lot of designs through history, where the engines weren't ready in time. And by the time, although its performance was exceptionally good, by the time it got to production, or proposed production, things like the Corsair and the Double Wasp had already sort of equaled its performance in a smaller package, more traditional. And obviously, if you can use one engine instead of two, it takes a lot of pressure off production things. So the Skyrocket never really got its day. But it's a really interesting, odd looking aircraft. So I'm glad it came up, actually. It did really well in the poll. Shot through to number one straight away. So let's have a little look at that. Here she is. So again, let me try and reduce some of the glare here. I've taken that off. So this is the scheme that it was produced in. You also have a projected scheme of what it would have been like in service in the box. So traditional Academy box. So it's top opening. There's that projected three-tone scheme, because it was, of course, for the US Navy. Yeah, just so fairly fairly sturdy box. I'd say a normal sturdy level. Check with the part list before unsealing, which I'm not really sure how you're supposed to check all of the parts before you've opened the bags, but I suppose you can see that they're there, you know. So yeah, that seems to be okay. But this one, you've got 2 frames in there. I'm not sure you're going to be able to check everything. It's not too bad, but it's quite an amusing little leaflet. So two bags, double framed. You have a bag containing the decals, which I really like. Not sure what that is. Is that masks? Yes, it is. That is a masking set. It's just very difficult to see. Might have to do a macro view on that one. You've then got some other stuff here, which is in Korean and other languages, just the usual safety blurb, which we will ignore or throw away. I'll probably use it as starter material for my wood burner. Recycle, reuse, you know all that. Okay. So this is not a new kit. This is a kit I got in recently in the shop, and I included it because I think it's a really unusual kind of subject, and Academy kits don't come up very often, so I thought I'd put that here. So the only thing I really don't like about this is, to start with, is I loathe these fold out style instructions. They're not very easy to use. They are very traditionally Southeast Asian stroke Japanese. A lot of companies do that. Tamiya have actually started going over to more booklet form in a lot of their kits, so they've kind of been influenced by the Western hobby market. Here, Academy have not. So, you know, it's one of those things. It seems like it might be a good idea to have this great big, you know, layout where you can see everything, but in practice, this is awkward for, I think, any modelling space. Particularly if you don't have much, you know, modelling space on your bench. It's a real pain. So that's one thing I would like to see changed. But other than that, I mean, the instructions are very clear. So you have here masking tape and a very nice guide showing you exactly where those go on the parts themselves, which I really like. That's nice. Then you have 2 options, early or late, for the one that was made, or the long nose. I don't know whether they actually made the long nose or whether they did and it was just a sort of late development of it. I don't know. I'll have to check on that. But and then looking through the instructions, you can see fairly standard building the wing. Cockpit then is built on the wing, it seems, and then we're making engine, putting fuselage over that cockpit on the wing. So fairly basic in like what you've got here. You don't seem to have any detail on the side. We'll look at the parts, obviously. So looks like a fairly basic build, this one. Oh, you do have the option to open that bay, although with how basic this looks, I'm not sure you would want to. But if you're super detailing it or using an aftermarket set, it's quite nice that you don't have to then chop the fuselage to display that. So we will see. Okay. Yeah, I think this is a what if. Late XF5F1 Skyrocket, December 1944. I don't know, maybe they did make it. But you can see the early one, this was 1940. So you can see if they got this into production quickly, and this was in service by 1942 when the Japanese attacked, it would have been quite a different situation that the US found itself, because this was quite a powerful, quite fast, very high altitude. Go away, silly window. It got to altitude very quickly. That's what I'm trying to say. Hence the name Skyrocket. Got your parts map as well. I always like this in any kit to see these. It's always good, because checking off, or if you do have a missing part, being able to refer to it and say, oh yeah, it's part 59 or whatever, is a good thing. So nothing earth-shattering there. What I do like on these Academy kits is you get a really good range of colours quoted, right? So they are telling you, zinc chromate type 1, it gives you a Humbrol colour, a GSI Krios, Life colour, a Testo stroke Model Master, Revell, a Vallejo and AK reference to it. That's pretty good, right? Also on the main colours, they're also quoting FS numbers. They're not just calling it dark gold grey. They're actually saying dark gold grey, which is FS 36231. So, which is great, Interestingly, not Tamiya. Interesting. Anyway, those are the instructions. Very typically Academy, traditional Academy kind of layout. Now these bags are sealed, so the first thing we need to do, I need to replace the blade on this. Look at the state of that, it's terrible. Didn't even cut all the way through the plastic there. It's because I've been using it for a lot of scraping. I've actually broken the tip off. It's had a lot of abuse, that poor old scalpel. I like to get my value out of my what they come out at, 25 pence or 50 pence a blade. Right, so let's have a look at the big components first. So this is engraved detail that you've got on here. It's not bad. It's quite fine. You've got some engraved detail here as well. The actuators are moulded in here. You've got it okay fabric effect. Nothing to write home about, but it's not terrible either. Same on the rear. It's a dual tail, obviously. So these are single piece with the different size trim tabs on the two versions here. But overall, it's not bad. It's nice, clean casting, moulding, whatever you want to call it. Now, when you come to the internal for this is where the cockpit is. Yeah, you have. This is very basic, right? You've got some engraved lines, which is where the fuselage is going to sit over, and a little bit of engraving. You've really got nothing there. Now, I don't know what the actual interior of the aircraft looked like. Could have been quite basic, because obviously it wasn't going to be fitted out with all of the bells and whistles for the active fighter. But as with a lot of Academy kits of this age, because I'll say this is not a new tooling, what you get is sort of quite crisply moulded parts with some nice panel lines, but quite basic. So, you don't have, these parts aren't open, for instance, these little vents here. So, you do have open ports, inlet ports here. You've just got a blank face at the back here of the engine. So they're nice, solid, sort of fairly simple builds generally. But if you're going to do, for instance, like I mentioned last week, entering it into a competition, you're probably going to need to think about where you would enter it, what you're going to add to it. Probably need to add things to this and enter it into a detailed category to make it, to make it really shine. So straight away, we have some evidence of it being an old tooling, and perhaps not designed with the aid of modern computer assistants that would try and avoid these type of sink marks, because you've got 3 there and you can feel them as well, so those will need addressing for sure. You can also tell from this how unique this aircraft was. So again, this is 1/48 scale. Look how short that fuselage is. This was not a huge twin-engine fighter. This was a small fighter, relatively speaking, with 2 engines. So that gave it that power to weight. In a way, similar to the Hornet. Not as beautiful as the Hornet by a long way, but it's got a weird-looking thing. So these Brownings are basic, right? So you've got a couple of 30 cals and a couple of 50 cals with their feeds, and they are just, basic. I mean, a lot of the installations in aircraft were pretty basic, but I don't think quite as basic as this. On the other hand, the instrument panel looks quite nice. We've got quite a lot of engraved detail there. Certainly if you're going to use, say, individual dial decals, this could look really good. Seat, very basic, got no seat belt. So again, you need to scratch build or add photo etch or something on those. The engines are not too bad. They got some basic detail on there. Some basic ribbing, and obviously you've got the exhaust collector ring, you've got all of the distributor parts on, so not too bad. Again, you could add some wire on there to push that detail level a little bit, so that's not too bad. Some simplification on some components were here. You've got these little depressions where obviously you could drill these out, because these were holes through there to lighten the structure. But again, considering that this is, an original Minicraft tooling, I can't remember when from exactly. We'll pull up the scale mates in a bit. Sometime in the, I want to say like in the mid 90s, I'm going to guess. Like 95, 96 maybe. Still nice, crisp mouldings here. I don't spot any obvious flash whatsoever, which is nice. So you do get a little bit of detail on the inside. Oh, here we go. I didn't need to guess. I was a little bit out. Copyrighted 1998 Minicraft models. If you can see that there. That's 1998. So, yeah. Pre-CAD. I mean, you can kind of tell, right? When you look at big components like this, so they've done this nice finish here. If you look on the other side, how rough this looks, where this has been sort of basically machined down, because they know this is the non-facing side. Obviously they've located all of the injector pin marks here, but they haven't cleaned up, they haven't polished the mold here. If this was a modern tool, it wouldn't matter, because this would have been CNC machined. It would be smooth as well. It might not have the finish of this, but it wouldn't be like this, kind of, having all of these little scratches, which are effectively, where this block of steel has been machined, and they've left, these rough tool marks on it, basically. So generally, if you're looking at certainly pre-CNC and pre-CAD, you generally get this kind of roughness, if you like. But yeah, you do get basic impressions of the controls. I mean, and to be honest, you're not going to see an awful lot through this cockpit. But yeah. So that's the two big main frames. Let's have a little look. I really do need to change this. It's just ripping the plastic. It's not really cutting it at all. I'd be better off with my teeth, I think. Separately bagged canopy. Looks quite nice, actually. But no option to have it open. So again, work required if you wanted that. That's the later nose, which again still isn't very pretty, is it? But I think if you're going to make this, I would say it's probably best to have the snub nose as it was, originally conceived. That's the weird one, isn't it? So these are obviously the engine nacelles. You can see how big the engines are, or the engine nacelles are, compared to the overall size of the aircraft. Obviously the design direction was to get as much power into a smaller package as possible. Again, this is fairly common on kits of this sort of age, where you have a single piece for the undercarriage bays, and then if you want to do it with the undercarriage down, you cut this from the other side to get your two halves. Which does mean if you got it wheels up, it gives you a really nice clean look. But of course most of these models are made wheels down, which means it's more of a pain in the arse. Modern kits often give you both. So it's interesting to see how little design cues like that have changed over the years. This was actually copyrighted in 1999. I'm not sure whether they updated this frame or what, but that's a beast of an injection point, isn't it? Can feel there's a little bit of mold release agent I can feel on there as well. I don't really want to open this, to be honest, because once it's opened, and it's a single piece canopy. It does have a little hole in the front. If you can see that, let's stick you on the super macro vision. I mean, it looks huge on here. So the canopy is a little bit distorted. The plastic isn't as clear. It's not as refined as modern transparencies. But that hole is obviously, they had the kind of telescopic sight, so they had like basically a telescope that they were supposed to get things in the reticule of, which was quick. I think get it on the pea shooter and stuff like that. It was just before the reflector gun sight became common. So basic does the job. I would probably look at replacing that if I was going to do anything in way of detail on this kit. But there we go. I can get my mouse to behave. I will get you across. There we go. Sorry about that. So that's the Skyrocket. Interesting to see it actually after the ICM kit, just to show you, that back in the late 90s, early noughties was a fairly good kit. It's a kind of good standard. Nice, crisp recessed panel lines, quite thin, good crisp tooling, but not a lot of detail. What we would consider a lot of detail today, at least. So that's where you would get your photo etch. You'd start to get the resin in the 90s as well, to bring that detail level up, or scratch building. Whereas now, we kind of expect a much higher level of detail straight out of the box, whereas that wasn't really the case in most kits of that age. So let me have a look back at comments. That Barrow headline was probably referring to Clyde Barrow. Oh, on the gangster car, indeed. Okay. Question: did ICM do a gangster car in German style? I don't think so. No, although they have done similar 1920s, early 30s German cars in 1/24 scale. And then some comments on the on the Skyrocket. What a weird looking craft. Yeah, Nick, good to see you. Really like the USAF yellow wing models. I think it's part of the appeal of this, other than the fact it's a weird aircraft, right? And it's an interesting concept as well. That early USAF, bright yellow wings, silver body. Again, make it something a little bit more unusual. So, again, if you're going to do, again, thinking competitions, this I think makes a good subject for a competition. And the reasons are, it's an unusual subject. It's a chance to show off your skills in terms of building, because the finish, a silver finish, is unforgiving, right? You'll see any little flaws in the silver finish, and also a silver, like natural metal finish, will give you, it's a chance to show your chops in recreating a natural metal finish. So it covers a couple of different things, specifically aimed at the judges, really, but it's also a striking visual aircraft. That silver and yellow, on there. It's one of those things that will draw attention. It will draw the eye because it looks weird and it looks attractive. That it's the yellow. We're naturally drawn to identify yellow and red because they are evolutionary danger signals. And then that glossy silver, and then you get into the technical aspect of, okay, if you can produce that flawlessly and make it look really good. I think it's common to a lot of people. If you see a natural metal aircraft model done well, it's like you can really think, I can appreciate that, the skill that's got in there and stuff. So there's a few reasons that I think that would make a good competition entry, but in a detail category, because the base kit here itself isn't probably going to do you any favours. Particularly, I think, the canopy, which is going to be difficult to really make the rest of it shine. Now, the other part of that, where did I put the decals? Because there. Let's take a little look at the decals, because I missed those. I really like it when model companies put them in separate bags. I think it does much more in terms of protecting them than having that little piece of film on them. So these are nicely registered. Good register, good colour density here. I don't think I've ever had any problems using Academy decals in the past. You also, so for that striking, yellow and silver aircraft, the ends of the props are tricolour, and they give you those as decals, which again is just a nice little thing. Notice there is no decal here at all for the instrument panel. So the instrument panel, you're either going to have to paint or, like I said, use individual dial decals or replace. So again, as an out-of-the-box build, I'm not sure you're going to be winning any competitions with it. I could be wrong, but you know, it does have some really nice elements here. You know, also these, you know, the original American insignia with the, which of course they eliminated the red ball because it looked too much like a Hinamano apparently, and before they went to the blue and white star and bar. So these look quite nice actually. You know, they don't feel thick. Good colour register, good colour density, good colour register, nicely printed, all pretty good. Still don't like the focus here. There we go. So, all good. Let's put those back in the bag. Which could be the most challenging part of this unboxing. There we go. Actually, not bad at all. And then let's pop all of that back in the box before I miss anything. Along with our amusing Korean warning. Oops. Try not to lose. Yeah, I'm not sure what they were thinking about with this, because that is, there's no way that's going to fit without doing that, right? I would build this version anyway, so I wouldn't be using the long nose part. So that's the Skyrocket. Next. Oh, it's the Trumpeter Westland Wyvern. All right. Now I think this is one of the ones. Oh, talk among yourselves a second. It's just over there. I just need to pop out and get it. It is, of course, right at the bottom of the pile. Here we go. Question, can you do a beginner's guide video sometime, Alex? Yes, so absolutely. So that was the intent over a year ago when I started or did the pre-video to the Man's Model Method series. I am actually recording the follow-up videos, which are actually going through the starter kits that I've chosen for each different subject and going through building those from a beginner's point of view. And then I'll be going through those and gradually building up different skills as I go along. So yes, that is something planned for this year. I have my whiteboard of intent, let's call it, opposite me, so I can look at it every time I sit down here. I can look and see all of the stuff on there, what I have and haven't done. Comment, don't remember Minicraft shutting up shop. I think they have, though. I think, though you can never be sure. And a lot of, you know, model companies, even when they die, often get Minicraft models. They shut shop in 2022, apparently. They went from 1975 to 2022. And they had a lot of association, or rather, Academy, like, did a lot of joint releases with Minicraft, so they reboxed a lot of Minicraft kits, usually as Academy Minicraft. And I think they still have, well, the Skyrocket I just showed you is a current release. So it's available now. I've got them in the shop. Well, I've got an extra one in the shop because I don't have huge amounts of room to keep masses of copies of kits. Generally, I reorder. I usually keep a couple in stock and then reorder when people buy them, if they're still available. Disadvantage of being a smaller shop, I guess. So yeah, as I was saying, kind of my train of thought before I saw that comment, before I saw the ScaleMates info, a lot of model companies, when they shut up shop, will sell the tooling, or the auditors, or the whoever breaks them up, or as part of their closing or whatever, will sell the toolings rather than, if they can't sell them as an ongoing concern, to other model companies, which is why Revell have the Matchbox toolings, which the Monogram toolings, a lot of that sort of stuff. Well, I think they have the Monogram toolings because that was merged, but you get what I'm saying. So, Westland Wyvern. That's from one weird aircraft to another, right? I think this is slightly odd subjects night. Westland Wyvern. Gannet-esque, I would say. It sort of looks like the fighter version of the Gannet, almost. A lot of similarities in some respect, and a lot of dissimilarities. It does look odd. This is obviously the Trumpeter kit, and let me get you across to the screen. And where is my camera there? So here we go. This is the S4 early version. Obviously, I got this second hand. You can probably tell because there's an old label on there and some dirt on the box. Still available. Trumpeter kit. It's got a little bit of finished model on the side. Standard kind of Trumpeter box. I think Trumpeter and Hobby Boss don't do themselves any favours. So if I was, again, giving advice from a business perspective, the same way I've done for other companies, informally, obviously not formally, the one thing I would say to Trumpeter and Hobby Boss are sort your boxes out. Not in terms of the structure. This is a very solid box. So as you'll see, it's a standard sort of glossy cover, but really rigid. Like, this is thin, double-walled corrugated box, very sturdy. But generally, their box art is a bit like, and not being unkind to young adult artists, but a little bit A-level project. If this was an 18-year-old that had painted this, you'd think that's really good. If it was a professional artist that's painted it, you'd think it's okay. And then you have this, the whole sort of presentation of the box feels cheap. I don't know how to put it, but the PR of it is not, it doesn't give a good impression in the way that an Airfix box, which is very, almost the opposite. It's almost overproduced. And some would say under-delivered, but I don't think that's true of current Airfix. But it's a very different impression than this gives you on the box. I mean, just an Airfix box, just as a comparison. Superb artwork. It's professional. So you've got this. It's very distinctive. So the Airfix logo. It's one stripe here, and that's it. So it's kind of quite clean. And then you've got your other bits on the side, and it just looks objectively nicer than this somehow. This is kind of a little bit, I don't know, 80s in the way it's designed. The mix of different fonts. It's just, there's just something. I can't quite put my finger on it. If anybody knows better than I do, can articulate that better, but it's just they're not selling what's inside the box as well. Whereas Airfix, I think, are extremely good at that. Trumpeter, not so much, which is a shame because generally what's inside the box is good. If you're talking about, you know, a reasonably modern Trumpeter kit. Some of their early stuff was a bit ropey. You saw I built the Challenger 2, which is pretty horrible. But you get, obviously, bagged decals. Very nice. And then you get bagged... So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags. Obviously, so this is second hand, so some of these pieces have already been taken out. This, believe it or not, is a contra-rotating gear mechanism for the propellers. So this had a contra-rotating prop, and they've actually given you this sort of like nylon type plastic to actually produce gears to allow you to have contra-rotating props, which is astonishing, right? And then obviously we've got instructions and the painting guide. So let me just get this in a position where it's not going to break anything. You also have a little bit of photo etch for both the straps and the instrument panel, together with a little film for the instrument backing. And then this is a torpedo, if you want a torpedo bomber version. So Trumpeter often do this. Trumpeter and Hobby Boss, same company obviously. Kit do it too. Have this separate little compartment. So they often have like a glued in piece or just a placed in piece to keep the more delicate parts in, as they have here. So let's start with the instructions. So for me, obviously this is started, so let's get back to how it would be. So again, the impression you get from the outside of the box isn't the same as when you open the box, right? Because when you open the box, you've got all that stuff, you think, oh, actually, and when we get to the plastic, you'll see it's very nice. Whereas the outside of the box is like you're expecting it to be like a Chinese knockoff, you know. It's also the kind of first impression you get with the instructions somehow. I don't know. It's not the best presentation, and this paper doesn't sort of build into that either. But it's a booklet type, and which is always preferable. And then when you actually get to the practicality, the sort of usability of this, you've got a parts map, you know, for all of the sprues. It tells you how many of each frame you should have, you know, all of these different pieces, you know, G1 times 1 gears, you know, so you know exactly what they're for. And then you're into building, and straight away you can see from the amount of components you have to build the seat, okay, this isn't just some, you know, cheap crappy thing where you're just getting a single one-piece seat. And then photo etch obviously going on for the straps. Inserts for all of the pieces for the instruments. So again, very different feel you're getting now looking at the instructions than from that initial box look. How all the gearing works. So there's our little gear piece. And then standard sort of build here. So we've got a camera for photo reconnaissance, rockets, torpedo, whatever those pieces are. What are those pieces? Don't even know where they go afterwards. Not sure. What's a RAFOG? Oh, is it? Oh, it's rocket-assisted takeoff gear, I think, is what that is. So I didn't have my glasses on when I was reading that. I think it's RATOG rather than RATOG. Ratog, yeah, rocket assisted takeoff gear, that'll be, I guess. And then we're going through, again, separate hubs to tyres, which is a nice thing. I always like that because you can paint them separately to get nice clean lines on those. Looks like we've got quite a detailed undercarriage bay. Yeah, it is. Like, there we go. There's the Ratog. So lots of options as well. I mean, a ton of options. And also option to fold wings should you wish. It looks to be. Air brakes you can have extended or closed. Well, you've got all this. Oh yes, it does give you the option to fold these in. I didn't realise the tips folded separately as well. And what options you have for how you want to put it up. Also, it shows what a weird layout. Look at the dihedral on those wings. So it's a weird looking subject. So not bad instructions, you know, they're fairly clear. Let's take a quick look at the my terribly blunt scalpel. Quick look at these decals. So bagged and with the film is, you know, about as good as you can get, really. And these look rather nice. They seem to be, well, on first glance they seem to be okay, but to me it looks like these centres aren't quite centred. The red in that looks like it's slightly off. So, not sure about those. Weirdly though, these ones seem to be okay. So that's odd. But, you know, most people have plenty of replacements for these sorts of things, or if not, you can get aftermarket replacements. Not ideal, but that is possible. So you've got, you know, not a bad set of stencils here. Not over stenciling, like I feel some Airfix kits do have so many stencils it drives you insane. And some nice different options here. I like these little dragons, they're quite cool. So not a bad decal sheet, with the provision of these being this one particularly. I think it's more this one than anything. Just looks off, you know, it's like too far to the side. Let's get to some plastic. Now, some of these have already been opened, so let's do those first. It'll be easier here. Like this one. And this gives you kind of the standard of this kit, right? I think this part probably shows it best. Again, I just need to turn that off. I don't think that's doing us any favours. Feels like there's a lot of release agent on this. It feels a bit slippery. So this would be one of the times I probably would wash the sprues. I don't normally, as people will know. But you've got quite a lot of detail here. Raised and engraved. So these panel lines are engraved. You have engraved rivets. Sorry, you can't see that very well. Just trying to get the light so you can see it. You've also got, those are engraved. These are raised. Raised pieces here. Raised parts in the undercarriage bay. So you've got a mixture of raised and recessed detail here. There's a lot in that one piece. Let me show you some of that close up. Let's get the super macro vision. And you can see if I can get it close enough. Not quite. There we go. So that's some of the raised detail and some of the riveting and the panel lines. So the good thing here, that riveting is quite deep. So it's going to take a wash really well after being painted. And these are, you know, they look big on Super Macrovision, but these are, you know, a fraction of a millimetre in diameter. So you've got some really nice detail here on a part that you're really not going to see, right? And, you know, you got it on things like this torpedo, I don't know what you call it, float guide. You know, it's on, these are, I think, the doors for the rear of the landing gear. So some really nice detailing on this. And that extends across the whole of this airframe. So you can see, I've got the light so that it glances off this. So you can see all the way across here, you've got this lovely recessed detail. And then you've got some nice raised pieces. Riveting all the way across this tail. And it is a big, weird looking tail, right? It's an odd looking aircraft, the Wyvern, or Wyvern, depending on how you want to say that. But the side consoles have some nice little detail pieces on. So some nice raised detail on here. And of course you do have the photo etch for the control panel. Nice detail on these pieces. These are the sides of the ejector seat. Again, it's riveted. So you've got some really nice, you know, base detail baked into the kit. If we think about the Academy kit and how that looked, same scale, 1/48 scale. You know, you had some nice crisp recessed panel lines, but you didn't have any of this riveting, right? So this is a little step up without being, you know, super modern or, you know, super high quality kit or anything. This is just a standard Trumpeter aircraft, but it's an odd one, isn't it? And pretty big for a fighter. I think it was fighter strike aircraft, right? So yeah, that's quite nice. See a little bit more of that in the flying surfaces. And again, you've got great riveting detail all the way across here. Very nice. Oh, it's got some chunky old landing gear, hasn't it? For carrier landing, I'm guessing. You've got some nice... These are nicely formed. So you've got these sort of very squared off landing gear, and then this little subtle bump in it for the wheel. That's really nicely represented there. I like that. The hook built into the body of the aircraft. So yeah, some really nice detail. I mean, this landing gear is nice and robust. It's going to support the aircraft well. You do have, like here, some pretty big ejector pin marks that you are going to have to deal with. But importantly, you know, this is easier to deal with on a flat area like that than if there was one here, for instance, right, where you've got detail here. This actually is where, you know, this little thing, this one of my new favourite tools, is comes in really easily to get, obviously not with this head, this is the rounded one, but one of those little heads to get in between there and sand that. So yeah, there are some ejector pin marks on places that you wouldn't necessarily want them, but I'm not seeing too many here. So we've got these and these. There's one there that you'd need to deal with. So nothing too egregious. Drop all of the parts everywhere. Let's have a look at this frame. And it's kind of more of the same, right? The wing fold mechanisms are a bit basic. But I don't know what they look like on the real aircraft. I suspect they were much more like the FX Gannet. So this is the underside where the landing gear goes. So you've got this detail in that will go into the other piece. The inside of these looks pretty nice. No ejector pin marks there. Some on these, which are parts of the flaps, I think. Again, very easy to correct any of those pieces, so that's not bad. Nice crisp tooling throughout most of this. A little bit of flash on some of the more delicate parts occasionally. Not particularly on here though. And I don't think... See, I wondered whether these were sink marks, but it's not. It's just the effect of the plastic cooling, I think. Which is good, because then we don't have to deal with any removal and then recreation of any of that riveting detail. So, that looks pretty nice. And then we get a couple of weapons screws. Well, I should say ordnance, because it's other stuff as well. So we just need to look at one of these. So we have the rockets. So the heads are cast in one piece. There's a little bit of flash or miscast, not miscast, but like with slight alignment bit at the end there. Just need to take that off. But overall, you know, the rocket assisted takeoff unit looks pretty good. Exhaust there. You know, you might want to just drill out the ends of these to give a bit more authenticity, but some pretty delicate pieces. That probably needs a little bit more refinement. But overall, these are the strakes for the horizontal stabilizers. Hub for the wheels, that's pretty nice. Let me show you that in Uber Vision. So there you go, that's the... There's a bit of texture on the plastic. That's one thing I will say. Which you can see pretty clearly there. Not particularly noticeable at this sort of scale, but it is definitely not... the plastic isn't up to the grade of Airfix or ICM for sure. There is some flashing in the inside of here, for instance, as well. So it's not as refined as a modern Airfix, ICM, Tamiya tooling, or even I would say Hobby Boss or Trumpeter tooling. This is a slightly older kit, but still overall not bad at all. It's quite good, and it's an interesting subject. So now I think that is all the plastic. Let's check. Plastic, yes. We just show that. So obviously somebody started this and then decided that it was not for them. I actually got it as part of somebody wanted to bring some stuff into the shop, get some store credit, and choose something else instead. So I obliged them on that one. So this is the contra-rotating mechanism. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I should probably look at the instructions, but the fact that you get it, I think, is quite remarkable. I think that one goes in. Why am I guessing this? I've got the instructions here. It was assembled when I first had it. Right, okay. So you get this piece has this on it like so. Then this piece do I have the other? I don't know where the other part of that is at the moment. That with this. It's not exactly that clear. I must say, the instructions here on exactly how to do this. So the G4 assembly goes on top of here. Is that right? No.
Have you finished?
No. But I've been brought toast.
With cheese?
With cheese. Very nice, thank you. Excuse me while I just eat my toast. This piece goes onto here. There we go. That's the contra-rotating piece. Then this goes on. See, what I needed was some sustenance. There we go. Then this goes on here with the shaft that isn't there. And then as this turns, the shaft turns in the opposite direction through to there. So you can have the contra-rotating bit. Very clever. Very nice. Oh, actually, it's supposed to go that way up. Oh, we've got the other little gear. I haven't got the other little gear in there. But anyway, just an aside, I was just intrigued for myself more than anything. But in fact, let's put all of that back in the box before I lose the pieces. It's a neat little thing. I mean, it's not something really I think that most modelers would even care about. But I like the fact that they give you the parts for it I think it's quite neat. Look at all this plastic. There. Put all of that out of the way a second before I then bring in this piece, because this is the painting guide, which is a separate glossy sheet, which I really like. And again, it shows the weird shape. It's just such a huge vertical stabilizer, and a massive front nose on there. Quite stubby wings, really, compared to the length of the aircraft. Very, very unique, but it is in this lovely, sky dark sea grey scheme of the 1950s Royal Navy. So we've got two versions. One from, we had three versions, didn't we? Yes, we've got A, B, and C. One from HMS Eagle, one from HMS Peregrine, and one from another one from HMS Eagle. 827 and 813 squadrons. That's that little dragon one, which looks nice, but actually this is quite nice with a little red band there. So there we go. That's the Trumpeter Westland Wyvern. Very interesting looking aircraft. So it's actually a torpedo bomber then, I guess, rather than a fighter. I thought it was a fighter as well. Not sure. It's not an aircraft that I know an awful lot about. I'm sure you guys can probably tell me. But again, building it, I would do the research and find out properly. I showed you the photo etch. I don't think there's much more I can show you on that. So let us move on. No, sorry, didn't mean to end. Let me quickly check the chat. Not one for the collection. Lox9 says a bit expensive. Hobby Boss kits are cheaper. Depends. I mean, they're all the same company. I mean, they do different subjects, but if you look at them, you can tell they're the same company. I suppose it's how they kind of market things. Travis says decals are the main gripe, badly researched, weird colours, and sometimes with spelling mistakes. Yeah, I think it. So I think Trumpeter / Hobby Boss / I Love Kit. They obviously devote less time to research, or they have less access to good sources than Western manufacturers or Japanese manufacturers. So I think it's one of those cases that back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, and even now, today, right, companies make mistakes. Mistakes in research, mistakes in production. I think the Chinese want to cover a lot of subjects, and they've got better, I feel, companies like Trumpeter, Hobby Boss, and I think now with companies like Ryfield, Meng, and Tacom coming into it, they've pushed the bar further, because Trumpeter and Hobby Boss have the Zhongchong Yatai company, as the parent is, wanted to establish themselves in the market through quality of what they produce, missing the fact that modelers are detail oriented and they want this subject to be correct, and sometimes those two are in conflict. So you've got subjects which were produced nicely but not necessarily accurately, which has caused them to have a bit of a reputation. I've not particularly found any issues with the kits in terms of accuracy that I've had, but the early ones, some of the research was poor. That Challenger 2 I built, there are a lot of errors in both the research side and the instructions and production of that plastic. That's probably the most extreme example I've come across of piss poor research and the execution generally. But correcting those and putting it together properly, it does look like a Challenger 2. Would I prefer to do a Meng one? 100%. So, is it a lot more expensive? Yeah, it's double the price, but you pay for the experience. If you want to save the money, it's a lot more hassle, but you save the money. So, let's just have a look. I think that's all we've got on the comments for that. Is it soft plastic or brittle plastic? Let's answer your question live, and you can be the judge. So these are single-bladed nippers. It's pretty soft. that is pretty soft plastic. Yeah, it's not soft. It's not like old Airfix. So resistance, getting in, cutting. It's not brittle. It's not soft. It's a good balance. The plastic isn't bad, actually. This isn't bad plastic. Say it's got a little bit of texture to it on the surface, but that really is to do, I think, with the tooling rather than the plastic, because their more recent toolings are a lot smoother. So yeah, the plastic's okay. Plastic's fine. It's quite soft. Good. Well, it's rigid, but it's not like super dense like early tack-on plastic. Although I found recent tack-on plastic is pretty good. Okay. 2144. We got time for one more, do you think? What's next? The AK Troop Carrier. Let's do the AK Troop Carrier. I think we can do that fairly quickly. So AK were good enough to send me a whole bunch of stuff, actually. Stuff I've used on the diorama, which we haven't actually got back into this year yet, but will come. Obviously, it's been very busy with announcements and stuff. They also sent me this. The M1008 Troop Carrier, which I have not yet started, obviously. So you will see the unboxing. So they don't make many kits at the moment, but AK have come a long way, I feel. And let's have a little look at their offering. So the box is similar, I would say, in construction to that Trumpeter kit that we've just looked at. We've got a glossy outer, which, no, it's not. I thought it was sellotaped together, but it's just very tight fitting. So a glossy outer over a robust card inner. That's a really solid box. And this is, if Trumpeter did this, see, AK know what they're about. You've got unified fonts. You've got one strip with what it is, your brand, and then you've got a little bit of description. It looks professional. It's got decent, very good art, particularly exciting, but then it is a truck, basically. So, yeah. A lot better than that, right? And then you get everything in one bag. Booklet, a Fretter photo etch, which is covered in film but not protected in any other way. I'm going to leave that in there. We'll have a quick look at the instructions. Really solid booklet. That looks very nice. Inside, oh, okay. So maybe we had, so that, masks for vehicles, fairly rare. I like that. Some very nice looking decals. They look superb. Oh, printed by Cartograph. That's the reason why. Those are like the Tamiya boxes you can buy. So those are cargo boxes. Nice addition. And then very, very nicely made instruction booklet. This is, it feels like quality. You've got glossy, like high, I don't know what that is, like 100 grams per meter paper. Parts layout diagram indicating parts not for use. Very good. Colours, all of course keyed to AK. One can hardly blame them for that. And then the instruction sequence. Looks fairly clear, fairly standard. Building the chassis. I like these little inserts which magnify the parts where you can't see. That's a nice touch. Hopefully that will come in useful in the actual building of it. Options. Back of the cab. It's a truck. It's all fairly standard. Obviously it's a troop carrier, so you've got little seat rests in the back. Cab. How to paint the instrument panel. Where the decals go. Little painting call-outs where needed. The wheels, separate hubs. Oh, you've got a separate hub. The tyres in 3 pieces. That's interesting. Not seen that before. The masking guide for where the masks go on the model, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different paint options, which is pretty good. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 options. Pretty nice. That's pretty good. Impression overall of that is extremely high quality, very high production value there. That is the best instruction manual we have seen tonight by quite some distance. Right, let's get a quick look. Oh, we just saw a little preview there of me editing Next Beyond the Box episode. Feels like you get a lot in that bag. It does feel like you're getting a lot. That's nice. That looks like that has been slide molded. Maybe it hasn't, I don't know, but it looks pretty good. I really do need to change that scalpel blade. It's terrible. That's a very complex piece. I'm almost sure it's been slide molded because you've got kind of undercuts here. You've got some detail on the roof there. It's a very nice piece, whatever. Some very nice curves. The way this is all done has to be slide molded, surely. So good first impression for sure. The only thing for me with this is the subject matter is not particularly interesting to me. So I'm jumping ahead to these transparencies because this, I think, is a nice way to do things. So they've got the instrument panel, you know, the dashboard bit in clear plastic here, sort of matted out where the clear isn't needed. These are incredibly clear. There's no optical distortion there. And then the doors themselves, you can see they've had, not polished plastic. So they've got this translucency for the pieces that you will paint. And then the clear piece, again, incredibly clear. I like that for a door, rather than sandwiching a clear piece in other pieces. When you've got a mask provided, I think this is a great option. So that's pretty impressive. That's pretty nice. Oh, good. Problem is always getting these pieces back into the bags. Shout out to the packers in all these companies that do an excellent job of getting these frames into these bags, without damaging them on a daily basis. It's not a particularly rewarding job, I wouldn't have thought, but it's really important. It's very needed, and yeah, do a good job. So the plastic feels and sounds like it's going to be a little bit harder, which of course we can test in real time. Oh, surprisingly no, that reacts very well. Feels like it's going to be really hard, but it's not. I mean, it is hard. It's got it holds this surface detail very well. I mean, there's some fantastic detail on this door insert. Look, it sounds a little bit like Hasegawa plastic, but it has none of that brittleness. That was surprising. Some nice detail on some of these. I'm not sure if those are sink marks across there or whether it's just the plastic, the image on the plastic. I'm not sure. Difficult to tell on that one. I think there is a little bit of sink on these. Can just feel it. It's always difficult to produce a piece which has these big, ribs and stuff, which doesn't get sink marks. You saw it on the Airfix Stalwart, of course. But some nice detail across all of these. Some very fine pieces, like these wing mirror attachment points. Steering wheel looks good. Some very fine pieces here. So one thing that I like in a lot of these kinds of kits, because I'm not a natural builder of this sort of subject, having a one-piece basic chassis. I love ICM, but sometimes when you have to make the chassis and then make it all up, it feels like you're leaving a lot to chance. Whereas this gives you a solid base to sort of build off right off the bat. And for me, who I don't really care too much about the underside too much, that's a blessing. But again, you've got good detail on the leaf springs here. Some really nice detail parts, nice scale on these, scale thickness on them. So in the transmission housing all looks good. So yeah, some nice moulding on display there. That looks pretty good. Let's have a look at these wheels. I'm intrigued by the three-piece wheels. So quickly just So these are the sides. Nice engraving for the petrol filler cap. Again, some really nice fine moulding casting here. Not as well protected as an ICM kit, but everything's come out in one piece. There's no breakages there at all. Probably down to the robust packaging. And then we have these 3-piece wheels. So you've got the main tread on this central piece, and then the outer on the 2 outers. Wonder why. Is there an advantage to that? Trying to think. I suppose the advantage of this is you don't get a central seam. You're actually splitting it along the lines of the natural tread in the tyre, which is clever. I like that. I'm interested to see how it will pan out. Now you do have locating pins on all of these to go on there, so probably for alignment of that tread. That's interesting. That's interesting. And I like tyres in plastic. You can do what you like with them. You know, you can make them look realistic with that. That is neat. That's neat. Right, I think that's everything. Let's go on to webcam. Yeah, okay, I wasn't expecting that. I had no kind of idea of expectation on that AK kit. But I'm pretty impressed. I think that these three-piece wheels are a neat idea. If they're not too fiddly, and I don't see why they would be, that's quite a clever way of getting away from a central seam, right? It's a little bit more building, but not a lot. And if you're not having to clean up a central seam, I think that's a big payoff, right? And yeah, you can paint the hubs separately before doing the tyres. I like that as well. It's always a good point. So I'm going to try that because I think that's a really nice idea. You know, it's just these little innovations that companies put up. You know, like how can we get away from a central seam? And AK have only just started doing kits, so that I think is quite impressive. Interestingly enough, one thing I noticed. Anybody notice anything about this frame? So I reckon they used the same sort of injection machine as ICM, because this is in every single ICM kit, this central injection thing. So I wonder if they're using the same type, you know, same model or whatever of injection machine. But anyway, are the tyres deflected for weight? I don't believe so. And to be honest, on a 35th scale model, you'd have to have quite a lot of weight in it to actually, have an effect on the tyres. But no, I mean, for an aircraft it's a little bit different because generally you only have 2 main landing gear, so all the weight is on those 2. For a truck like this, I mean, if you actually look at them in reality, they don't show an awful lot of deflection. Of course, that's very much up to you, and there are various methods of recreating that if you should want it. But Stay Nameless, welcome to Sprue. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining. If you pop onto the YouTube channel, community posts, there's a members post there. I'll make sure it's updated. Check tomorrow. It'll give you the link for the Discord channel, where you can come join us and have a chat and all that kind of good stuff. Martin Willis, do you sniff the rubber tyres that come in some kits, Alex? No. No. I think as well, because vinyl tyres smell? Because they're not rubber anymore. They're vinyl rubber. Rubber, as it were. No. The smell... So one thing I do sniff, this is a weird admission, some Sharpies. Some of them... So some of the solvents in them are alcohol-based, This, that is not one of them. That has more of an acetone base. That's horrible. Oh, wish I'd done that. The one I use for pricing at work it smells really nice. I do have a smell of that occasionally, but rubber, no. But it's a strange one to end the stream on. But anyway, I think I've covered all of the questions and comments tonight. Thank you all guys for popping in tonight and watching the unboxings. Thanks for the engagement. It's glad to see that your comments were actually coming through this time, and we didn't have the frustrations we had last week. But again, thanks for joining me tonight. Hope you enjoyed some of those kits. Had a nice unusual blend tonight. I was quite pleased with how the polls went. I'll reset those, and we've obviously got quite a few ICM kits for the next unboxing, and fingers crossed I can get the March releases as well, so I can replenish some of these kits today with some of that interesting good new ICM stuff, and we can see how those do. But otherwise, I shall be joining John Alec on Friday night for Scale Model Inc. Live, so please do look out for the invite on that on my channel or John Alec's channel, and I look forward to seeing you all there. Videos, I've been doing quite a bit of research for different videos at the moment, so I know I haven't done much this week because I've mainly been doing that, but I have some interesting news which will be in the next Tuesday talk for some of the developments on the channel, so that's something to hopefully look forward to. But anyway, thanks guys for joining. Have a fantastic rest of your week. See you on Friday night. Take care and happy modelling. Cheers guys.